Today, we're talking about those who once stood at the very top of the Turkish entertainment industry and then tore down everything they had spent years building. Some ended up behind bars. Others raised their hands against women. Some insulted their own country. And then there are those who somehow survived against all odds. So who really paid the full price for their downfall? And who got off with barely a scratch? Mehmet Akif Alikert. Let's start with a man who destroyed himself with his own words. Mehmet Akif Alikert was known for the hit series Sila. He had it all: roles, fans, respect. But one day, he crossed a line that, in Turkey, no one gets away with. Even during the peak of his career, there were rumors about his difficult personality. People said that on the set of Sila, he had serious clashes with Cansu Dere, to the point where they barely spoke off camera. But later, the whole country got a glimpse of who he really was. Mehmet publicly insulted the Turkish flag, spoke dismissively about his own country, and made degrading comments about women. In one post, he called Turkish women self-absorbed and claimed they play innocent until they get what they want from a man. The backlash was immediate and brutal, especially considering that his core audience was women. The reaction was instant. Colleagues, producers, and viewers all turned their backs on him. Not a single major project ever opened its doors to him again. He even went as far as to curse the very project that made him famous, telling fans don't watch that crap and saying he deeply regretted being part of it. After leaving the industry, he moved to Brazil and started what can only be described as an online war against his past and Turkish society. Mehmet frequently gets into heated arguments on Instagram. There were even instances where he posted photos with weapons and openly threatened people who criticized him. It seems his fragile ego simply couldn't survive the fallout. Talat Bulut. Talat Bulut is a name familiar to anyone who has watched Forbidden Apple. Charismatic, in demand, with a reputation as a serious actor. But behind closed doors, it was a different story. Allegations of harassment shattered his image. In 2018, a 19-year-old costume assistant, Ozge Simsek, accused him of inappropriate behavior on set. The prosecutor's office launched an investigation, but ultimately closed the case due to lack of sufficient evidence. Despite that, 56 Turkish producers publicly stated they were no longer willing to work with him. During the scandal, other actresses who had worked with him on different projects also came forward with similar accusations. Some of those incidents reportedly dated back as far as 18 years. For Talat, this was a verdict in itself. His talent proved powerless against what he was accused of. Ozen Goven. Ozen Goven was an actor admired for portraying complex, layered characters. Intelligent, subtle, intellectual. That's how audiences saw him. But in real life, he turned out to be something entirely different. Everything unraveled in 2020. His then-girlfriend Denise accused him of domestic violence. The legal battle lasted more than 3 years, and it was revealed that Ozen had beaten her during an argument. Not only that, he allegedly continued the assault for hours, not allowing her to leave the house. Once this became public, his carefully built image collapsed overnight. An industry built on audience trust doesn't forgive something like that. A career that had been on the rise suddenly went into freefall. The court found Ozen Goven guilty and sentenced him to prison. According to various reports, he received a sentence of around 2 years. Kenan Imirzalioglu. Kenan Imirzalioglu is one of the leading male faces of Turkish cinema. Ezel, Good Morning Alif, dozens of successful projects. But there's a darker chapter in his story. For years, rumors about aggression and alcohol followed him behind the scenes. Then, in 2014, Kenan was detained during a large-scale police operation. He was suspected of using illegal substances, and there were also discussions about possible involvement in distribution. Prosecutors were pushing for a lengthy prison sentence. In 2015, Imirzalioglu was sentenced to 10 months. However, due to specifics in Turkish law, since the sentence was under a year, he didn't actually serve time and instead received a suspended sentence. It looked like the end of his career. But Imirzalioglu is one of the few who managed to come back. He went through a long legal process, but in the end, it didn't stop him. He returned and became in demand again. Ahmed Kural. Ahmed Kural is a comedic actor known across all of Turkey. Funny, charming, a fan favorite. But behind that image is a very different person. In 2019, Ahmed Kural was sentenced to 16 months in prison for insults, threats, and physical violence against his ex-girlfriend singer, Talat Bulut. The court found the assault to be proven, but the prison sentence was ultimately converted into probation. You'd think that would be enough to end a career. But Kural continues to work. Unlike Ozen Goven, his career didn't take a hit. Unfortunately, not every scandal ends in justice. Burak Deniz. Oops, sorry to interrupt the story, but I've got some important news. I just launched merch made for Turkish drama fans. T-shirts with phrases only real fans will get. Check out the link in the pinned comment. Burak Denise is young, promising, and undeniably attractive. One of those actors once called the future of Turkish cinema. But he keeps getting pulled into scandals, mostly tied to alcohol. In 2020, he got behind the wheel heavily intoxicated and hit a motorcyclist. The rider wasn't seriously injured, but police recorded a significant level of alcohol in Burak's system. His driver's license was suspended for 6 months and he was fined. The scandal was loud since drunk driving in Turkey is seen as a serious violation of both law and public morality. Still, his career held steady. Later, the media reported another bizarre incident. While staying at a hotel, Burak ordered food late at night, but the kitchen was already closed. So he walked into the staff area and took a pot of soup that had been prepared for employees back to his room. He later apologized, blaming it on uncontrollable hunger. Since no one was harmed, fans mostly treated it as a funny story. But the next scandal was no joke and could have led to jail time. It happened at a hotel in Adana. While intoxicated, Burak repeatedly approached the table of actress Nilperi Şahinkaya and her friends, shouting insults. The situation escalated to court. Nilperi filed a lawsuit for insult and disturbing the peace. Despite Burak's public apology, the case dragged on, but in 2024, the court acquitted him due to lack of sufficient evidence. So far, none of these scandals have seriously damaged his career. Partly because he's young, partly because the audience has been forgiving. But it's clear he has issues with alcohol. Turkish media have repeatedly caught him leaving clubs heavily intoxicated, arguing with journalists, or behaving provocatively. Yammen. Yammen is a phenomenon. Few actors generate as many scandals as he does. And yet, he remains in demand and adored by his fans. On the set of Who Didn't Love? He had a conflict with his co-star Selin Soyder. During an argument, Yammen threw a glass of tea at her. The court found him guilty and ordered him to pay a fine. Several producers cut ties with him after that, but it didn't go much further. In 2019, Jan sparked outrage with sexist remarks. During an interview in Spain, when a fan asked, "How can you prove you're real?" He replied, "Come to the back room, I'll prove it to you." The backlash was immediate and intense. In another interview, he said that lead characters in a series need to have high libido toward each other, otherwise the audience won't believe it. The comment was widely seen as vulgar and sexist, which led to his effective exile from Turkish projects for several years and his eventual move to Italy. In 2025, Italian media widely discussed his alleged conversion to Christianity, reportedly supported by his friend Stefano Papa, who helped him adapt to life in Italy and integrate into the local entertainment industry. Stefano stood by him during some of his toughest moments. Later, it emerged that Jan had started a relationship with Stefano's wife, DJ Sarah Bluma. The fallout led to the end of their friendship and public accusations of betrayal. Jan even publicly said he wanted to marry Sarah, but just a few months later, they broke up. Today, colleagues treat him with caution. The audience knows everything. But for now, his on-screen image is still holding. Hallet Erkhench. Hallet Erkhench is Suleiman the Magnificent, the role that made him a global star. The biggest blow to his reputation came in May 2025, when an Istanbul court handed down a verdict 1 year, 10 months, and 15 days in prison for giving false testimony in a case related to the Gezi Park protest. Those events go all the way back to 2013. Authorities accused him of distorting the facts. How this will impact his career remains to be seen. But part of the Turkish public has already called for a boycott of projects involving him. Fasa Jivech. Fasa Jivech is known for the series Cranberry Sorbet. One of her biggest scandals broke in May 2024. The actress was detained in Istanbul while attempting to buy illegal substances from a dealer who was already under police surveillance. She mistook undercover officers for dealers and approached them herself, asking, "Did you bring the stuff?" In her statement, she admitted she had ordered the substances due to depression. However, the case for aiding and abetting was eventually dropped, since she never actually received the drugs. In the summer of 2025, it became known that a criminal case had been opened against her for threats and insults directed at a friend of her ex-boyfriend. According to investigators, Fasa sent messages threatening to hang him from a bridge, invoking her status as one of Turkey's most famous actresses. Prosecutors were seeking up to 5 years in prison. Fasa later stated that after losing close relatives, she developed psoriasis and alopecia due to severe stress. Her lawyers built the defense around this, arguing that the aggressive messages were sent in a state of emotional distress, intensified by hormonal treatment and depression linked to alopecia. The court took this into account, and now, instead of 5 years, she is likely facing a suspended sentence. Despite all these scandals, she was not removed from the series. This sparked outrage among viewers, especially in light of what happened next. Dhukan Gungghore. Dhukan Gungghore, who played Fatish in Cranberry Sorbet, was detained in Istanbul in early 2026 during a large-scale police operation. Toxicology reports, including blood and hair tests, confirmed the presence of illegal substances. As a result, producers at Gold Film and the management of Show TV made the immediate decision to remove him from the cast. All scenes featuring him were cut. He was erased from promotional materials, and the role was recast with another actor, Emre Dinler. His colleagues gave him an emotional farewell on set. Dhukan himself couldn't hold back tears and said he believed he would return. He was at his peak, and then everything collapsed overnight. Miam Uzerly. Miam Uzerly, the iconic harem from Magnificent Century, once simply disappeared from set. She stopped answering calls and halted production. The reasons were a sudden pregnancy and emotional burnout. For a long time, she didn't act at all, focusing on her personal life. Eventually, she returned to the screen, but her career recovered slowly, and she never quite regained the same scale of success. Fasa Jivech. Fasa Jivech became a nightmare for production teams, shouting at staff, clashing with colleagues, issuing ultimatums. The 2014 scandal is still remembered as the clearest example of her difficult personality. She was constantly late for makeup and filming on the set of Kurt Sayed, making the entire crew wait. On top of that, she complained about lighting, camera angles, even the quality of food on set. Kenan Imirzalioglu finally lost his patience when yet another one of her demands pushed filming late into the night. He snapped and said in front of everyone, "I will never work with this woman again." And he has kept his word. They haven't shared a project since. Her exit from the series El Parslan in 2022 wasn't just about wanting to spend time with her children. It was also tied to specific working conditions she demanded from producers, shortening the workday to 8-9 hours, compared to the typical 12-15 hours for Turkish series, and requesting a private trailer. She's also often accused of demanding reshoots if she feels that her co-star looks brighter or more attractive on screen. Today, she rarely acts, living mostly off advertising deals and social media contracts. Which story shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this interesting, subscribe to the channel. There are many more stories ahead that people usually don't say out loud.